In this video, we're going to start out talking about Python enhancement proposals. These are proposals that people put up to say, basically, this is what we're proposing to become a standard or a convention for programming in Python. So the one we're going to talk about two of them today. I'm going to start out with this one, PEP 8, which is the style guide for Python code. And basically, it basically tells you how to format your code so it's very readable. You know, there's different styles on, like, for you people that program Java. Do you put the curly brace at the end of the method signature, or do you put it on the next line? You know, there's that great debate. So Python actually has a style guide that tells us exactly how we should type our Python code. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but I want you to look at what it covers. Indentation. Should you indent with tabs or spaces? What's the longest line length you should use? How many blank lines should you have? How about string quotes? And we're going to talk about those more in a minute. Do you use singles or doubles, or, you know, all those questions are answered. How do I do block comments or inline comments? What naming conventions should I use? Should I use camel case? Should I use all uppercase for constants? What do we do? Naming conventions. How should we name things? Should we use uppercase characters for class names? Should we use lowercase characters for class names? So if I click on this, it'll take me down. Class names should normally use the cap words convention, right? All capital letters, beginning with a capital letter, capitalize each word in the class name. Type variables, use uppercase. So you can read through all these. I'm not going to go through all of them one by one. Blank lines, where was that at? I do want to talk about that because I've mentioned it in a couple of videos. Okay. Surround top level functions and class definitions with 2 blank lines. Method definitions inside a class should be surrounded by a single blank line. Extra blank lines may be used sparingly to separate groups of related functions. So one of the things I've noticed is some of you like put a blank line between every line of code, and it does make it hard to read. A small line break in certain places between logical sections is pretty good. Okay, some of you put way too many comments. You do want to let people know what you're doing in your sections of code, but you don't want to over comment, and especially things that are pretty obvious to anybody who's been programming. And we're going to talk about better ways to comment in just a minute. So read through this and get to know it. Get to know it. I try to follow style guide. 2 blank lines here. Actually, I should probably have 2 blank lines there. 2 blank lines above and below the class definition. I think that's actually 1 there. The other 2 blank lines would be here. But between each class, we have 2 blank lines. Down in my code, I used a single blank line here to separate logical set. Here's where I'm creating a bunch of objects. Here's where I created a bunch of print statements. I left 1 blank line there to be like a marker to distinguish between 2 sections that are doing different things, right? So that's okay to use one of those. What you don't want to do is this, or put a comment above each one of these lines. We don't want that. Okay, so read through the style guide. It will help you be a better programmer if you program the way, you know, the way the convention says, because that's how other programmers are going to program as well. We follow some conventions. One of the conventions we're going to talk about is the docstring conventions, and that is in PEP 257. So what is a docstring? A docstring is a string literal. If you remember those, they're string literals. We will surround with 3 double quotes. It occurs as the first statement, and this is where you should use it. The first statement in a module, in a function, in a class, or in a method definition. So all 4 of those places, and we haven't really done it a whole lot, right? I've been kind of skipping over that And now I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to formalize it. When you do it this way, they become the __doc__doc special attribute of that object, meaning there is a way to access those and print them out. And we'll see that in a minute too. All modules should have DocStrings, all functions and classes exported by a module. String literals, you can use them elsewhere, okay, but they're not recognized by the Python compiler to be a part of this __doc method. So let's take a look. Let's do some DocStrings. And again, this is another video that I had done, and for some reason it got corrupted before I could upload it to YouTube. So I am remaking it. So some of this code is already typed, and rather than have you watch me retype it, I am going to copy and paste it. So right here, the first thing I should do after my class definition right here, I am going to put a docstring. Okay. So what's a docstring? Okay. 3 double quotation marks, and it ends with 3 double quotation marks. Okay. And it tells what this class is for. This is the docstring for the class. What's this class for? It's a class to represent a bird. And then down here, I listed its attributes. I said attributes. I said there's a name attribute that's a string, which is supposed to hold the friendly name of the bird. Now what does this do for somebody that wants to create a new bird? Right at the very top of my code, they can see the things that they will need to provide in order to make that bird. This is the arguments they'll have to pass into the parameters. Okay, and it's written in English. It's not code. Okay, we don't want to repeat code. Anybody can go down here and look at the code and figure out what it's supposed to be. This is our friendly documentation up here. So wingspan is an int, should give the bird's wingspan. And notice this, because it doesn't really say it down here, but I have it, wingspan in inches. And when I created the birds, I estimated. I have no idea the real wingspan of a penguin. I'm pretty sure eagles are about 6 feet, 72 inches. So I put 72 when I did that example. Okay. And then the health, and I made those numbers up. Okay. And I never talked specifically about what health should be. I just kind of assumed in my head that a perfectly healthy bird would be 100. A sickly bird might be down in the 20s. A dead bird would be at 0. All right. So I did specify it here. It's a number to represent life of the bird, ranging from 1 to 100. All right, so let's do one for our init method. Our init method, every method should have a docstring. Now, these docstrings, some people might say they're a little verbose. Okay, meaning I got kind of wordy on these. Some methods won't require anything quite that elaborate. So we'll do one for food when we're done here, for eating food here, so I can show you what I mean. So this is the birds init method. Okay, its arguments, it takes a name as a string, a wingspan as an int, health as an integer. Okay, and kind of repeats what the class does because the init does work for the class. So let's do one for food, and I had not done this in the first video. So what should people know about food? About the food method. Method, so the bird can eat. And then let's explain this argument, because this is something that might not be clear to people. Args. Food should be a string, right? Because for our simulation, we're just printing out the food as a string. So right now, I just told somebody what this food parameter should be. They don't have to read down through here and figure out, they're printing out that food variable. It needs to be a string. I'm just telling them what the bird is eating. Okay. So this docstring for this method, a little bit shorter. Okay. So all your methods, All your functions, all your modules, and all your classes should have DocStrings. Now let's go down here where I printed out all my bird information. I didn't change anything. All that still works how we expected it to. I want to print one more thing. Let's print out bird, because it belongs to the class, underscore underscore doc or underscore, and see what happens. So it prints out that exact text that I used for my documentation. So if you ever want to use somebody's class and you're not sure how, hey, I want to use a bird class, you can just jump in and print. And if they conform to standards, you can print bird dot underscore underscore dot doc. And you can find out everything you need to know about that class without ever actually looking at the class's code. Okay, that will automatically be available through this variable for anybody that wants to use the class. And that's why we do it for every class, for every module, for every method.